But they laid him in here, and this is where he later died. But they didn't want it to be a spectacle at the funeral home or anything, so he was also embalmed here.
Okay.
And he was prepared for his train ride back.
Today we are traveling south of Atlanta to the town of Warm Springs, Georgia. Most specifically, we are visiting the residence of former President Franklin Delano Roosevelt and his wife Eleanor. The president had started visiting the hot springs in the area in the early 1920s as a way to ease the pain of the polio that he was afflicted with. He then built a home here on land that he had purchased. He periodically visited by train from Washington, D.C. up until the time of his death on April 12, 1945. Hopefully, this video of my trip to the Little White House historic site would inspire you to make your own trip to learn about the 32nd President of the United States and his wife Eleanor. Thank you for watching, and please consider subscribing if you have not yet done so. Is there like an entrance fee, or is it?
Yes.
Okay, and what's the entrance fee?
Go down to the steps.
Okay. Hey, how are you? Good, thanks. So after paying the entrance fee to get into the museum, which is where you're going to start the tour, you begin to see a lot of artifacts and exhibits documenting the life and the achievements of the late president. You start by walking down a hallway where there are a lot of photographs and portraits capturing critical moments in his administration. And one of the things you'll realize in these portraits, he's always with his wife Eleanor. And then you enter the main area of the museum, where there are a number of different spaces containing different exhibits. So you start off by seeing his table with the setting in place. There's also a horse and carriage that was used to take him from the train station when he got to Georgia and to bring him to his house. There are also some cars as well within the exhibit that was used to transport the president from the train station to his residence here in Warm Springs. Now, I've not been to see what these springs look like, or do they really have healing properties. I've never really been to it, but I've been to the town itself, and it's really intriguing to see all of the different artifacts. He wore a lot of hats, but one of the things he also had a lot of were canes, because he depended on these for support when he started to get ill. So he had all of these intricately designed canes on display, and some of them are really, really interesting to look at. And then there are spaces within the exhibit dedicated to his wife Eleanor, the former First Lady, and talking about her contributions to the economy in Georgia, including starting companies and advocating for people living in the rural parts of Georgia. Once you exit the museum, you go out to the Central Courtyard, where there is, a map showing all of the different buildings on the property, including the Little White House, which we'll get to shortly. Alright, so we're going to walk through what's called the bump gate, and then I think off to the right is, what is that, the servants' quarters? Let's go to the right. Alright, so this is the servants' quarters. Door is open. It's kind of dark in here. this to be like a sleeping area. With a Bible. Alright, so next, the guest house, which is to the left. The door is open. Living quarters. It's pretty dark in here, so I'm not sure how much the camera is really picking. Looks pretty small from the outside. So after you leave the museum, you go through the guest as well as the servant quarters. You then make your way to the little White House, and at first the size of it kind of shocks you for being smaller than what you would think. Most people would think with the name White House in its title that it would represent or look similar to what the White House in Washington DC looks like, but it is a really small residence, and you enter into the residence through the kitchen for the tour. And I want to take a moment to thank the tour guide who is going to describe the history of the house to me in a few minutes. But you enter into the kitchen and you see how the house was set up back in those days. It's a relatively simple kitchen. They did have a refrigerator. They did have these porcelain sinks, a lot of cutlery and dishes that they used for dinners that were hosted at the residence. I didn't find out what the stove ran on, whether it was propane or electricity or whatever, but it seemed to be some kind of gas stove that was used in the kitchen area. But you can see in the butler pantry all of the official looking plates, etc. What year was the house built?
1932.
Oh, wow.
This house and the servants' quarters were built in 1932. The guest house was built in 1933, a year later.
Okay. Wow.
And they used the same architect to build even the guest house, which was Henry
Okay.
Toombs.
That's why they all look similar in style
The
and
only
design.
difference is he wanted the wood ceiling.
Uh-huh.
FDR wanted the wood ceilings all together.
Wow.
The architect didn't want to do that, which, as you can see, he won that argument. But he was not down here when the guest house was built. So
Yeah.
the guest house does have a plaster ceiling
Oh, yeah.
instead of the wood.
Instead of the exposed
And
beams
all of
and
the
woods.
wood is longleaf pine, which come off of the property. The stone in the fireplace is from the property as well.
Okay.
The boat above the mantel, is the black one, is a boat that him and his bodyguard Earl Miller had built. And then the boat over here, on top of the hut, Joseph Galantini, a designer out of Savannah, built that for him and gave it to him as a gift. He liked it so much that he had it insured for the same price as the house.
Oh, wow.
And to build the house and the servants' quarters together cost $8,713.
So in today's money, how much is that?
Oh, probably
Millions.
and if not more.
Yeah. And I noticed there's one of these on the other side of the door. Where did I see one?
He loved the boat.
He loved boats.
He was a very avid sailor by the time he was 8. He wanted to join the Navy, but being from a prestigious family, the answer was no, that's not for you. But he later in life, he followed in the Theodore Roosevelt's footsteps and became Assistant Secretary to the U.S. Navy.
Okay, cool.
So he loved boats. That one over there is the USS Constitution. And on that,
The vase?
the
Or the
vase
mug?
over here on the corner, is also for the USS Constitution. There was a limited edition of those made, and all of them that was sold was used to restore the U.S. Constitution.
Wow. And this is a, what is that, a phonograph?
That is a phonograph dictaphone.
Oh, wow.
He could record AM broadcasts, record his speeches, but he could also listen to the records.
Okay, cool.
And then this here is the Delano family crest from his mother's side of the family.
I'm sorry, where's the crest? Is it on? This is the crest. Okay.
All of the furniture in here is original, and it all come from Valco Industries.
Okay.
And Valco Industries was something that Eleanor had ran, and she employed people during the Great Depression.
Okay.
So she's basically, her business supplied all of the furniture. But he was sitting in that chair when his portrait was being painted. He had a cerebral hemorrhage. It was very subtle. The only one that really noticed it was the artist that was painting him. They alerted the Secret Service. They took him to his bedroom, where he later died.
Yeah.
Everybody has favorite features. Mine is that lamp right there. The lamp behind the door.
Yeah.
No, this one here.
Oh, this one?
But if you look under it, it has a fan blower under it because it was also a heat pump from the light.
Oh, wow.
So I really like that. If I ever bring those back, I'm getting me one, I'm telling you.
That's part of history right there. I've never seen anything like that.
If I ever get one of those back, I'm getting one of those. Just, if nothing else, just to keep my feet warm.
No, I saw a sign outside saying the unfinished portrait.
That will be up at the Legacy exhibit.
Okay.
He had passed away. He had a stroke while they were doing his.
So that's the one they were making when he caught his stroke.
And she later.
When you say the Legacy exhibit, is it up the hill?
Yeah, it's going to be up the hill towards the gift shop.
Okay.
And the artist that done the original portrait, she later finished the portrait.
Okay.
But she did not want to disrespect the unfinished portrait.
So she did.
So she changed the color of the tie in the new portrait.
Okay.
Of what she thought.
Okay. Well, cool.
And that basket on top of the mantle is made out of pine straw needles.
Oh, wow.
Somebody has a lot of patience to do that.
Yeah.
And it is not me. I promise.
Wow. So is this owned by, is it a federal site or is it
this is a state.
The state? Okay.
When he passed away, he had actually left this to the foundation in his will. And it wasn't long after that it was given to the state.
It was gifted.
It was turned into a museum.
Okay.
And then, well, the foundation kept it for a long time.
Yeah.
And it was turned into a museum in 48. So from 48 to 61, the downstairs part of this was the actual museum. Then from
And is that still accessible today? Okay. No, it's not.
Well, it is, but it's not. We keep it locked off.
Yeah.
So now there's nothing up underneath there.
Okay.
Then in 68, the museum was up at the top of the flag wall, which is now our administration offices. And that was there until 2004. And then the museum you see today was 2004 to present.
That's when it was built. Yeah. Okay. It is incorporated into the site though, because initially when I was coming in, I thought, well, okay, maybe that's the house, but it does make a good entrance.
That used to be the neighbor's house.
Okay.
Or Roosevelt's neighbor, and I cannot remember her name. But that was their house, and when they passed, they had left it to the foundation as well.
Okay.
Now when you come outside, you go to the right, you can see the secretary's bedroom, which was Missy Lehan. That was his secretary for 21 years, and you can go through and look in the viewing area of that. But that was his secretary for 21 years. That is not the other secretary that everybody thinks.
Wow. So she had a little sitting area, sleeping area, and
she had a bathroom, and then this, before it was turned into a museum, this was a screened-in porch for her.
Okay. I noticed one, the sentry post there.
Yes, there is a total of 8.
8, okay.
Now the Marines they'd done 3-hour shifts, but they would camp about a quarter of a mile back that way at Camp Roosevelt, which is now known as Camp Dream. And then this is the president's bedroom where he did die.
Oh, wow.
But they laid him in here, and this is where he later died. But they didn't want it to be a spectacle at the funeral home or anything, so he was also embalmed here.
Okay.
And he was prepared for his
train.
Okay. For his train ride back.
Yeah.
He always came by train. Mm-hmm. He left with a 600-pound copper and brass coffin. Mm-hmm. With 10 pallbearers. Wow. But they built up in the train car, they built up a rise to put his casket on so you could see his casket. And everybody could see it when they would, as he traveled back to New York.
Yeah. This is his bedroom. It's the bedroom and then
this is
washroom.
His bedroom and his bathroom. Which you can tell he kept it away from the wall because he wanted to help himself as much as possible. Yeah. Be as independent as possible. If you look on this side, you'll see a board that kind of slants down. That was if anything fell over, it would roll out here into the middle of the floor.
That's smart.
So that way it would not go under the top.
So it's kind of angled down.
Right.
Yeah. Very smart.
Just so it wouldn't go down. And yes, that is the original toilet paper.
What about the toilet?
That's all original.
Really?
Yes.
So they had indoor facilities like this back then.
And he actually had it raised up for him.
Yeah, I see the little pedestal.
Yeah, sometimes that hasn't changed much either. I think the only thing that's really changed about bathrooms is going to be these big old windows.
This is real toilet paper from back then?
Yes.
Wow. Fascinating.
That was there on April 12th, 1945.
Okay.
And this is Eleanor's bedroom.
Okay, so they slept apart.
Eleanor did not come down as much to visit.
Okay.
But when she did, she slept here. But back then, it was common for spouses to sleep in separate rooms. And then these are throughout the whole house. But these are panic buttons.
Okay. In case.
He had almost a paralyzing fear of fire.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So he wanted to make sure, that's why he got the floor-to-ceiling windows. But he wanted to make sure that he had an escape route.
Yeah.
And that if he needed it, he could get to those.
Yeah, he and I have the same fears, I guess.
Yeah. And this is the foyer.
Love the entryway with the transoms around the door.
And then that is the first wheelchair that he designed himself from a kitchen chair, so that way he could be more mobile and independent. Have the large wheels in the front to push himself around. Small wheels in the back.
So he wanted to be somewhat independent in the way he set up the house, so he didn't have to rely on anyone really.
And with that, even with that chair, he could slide right up underneath the table.
Slide under the table. Yeah. Okay. How many dogs did they have?
Just one.
Just one.
And Fala lived 7 years.
Okay.
Longer than Franklin did, but Fala was also buried at his feet.
Okay. Cool.
You have the lights here. These lights were on all the time when he was here.
Yeah.
Then you also have that blue light above your head. When that light was on, that meant that he was accepting visitors. They could see him from the bunk gate.
Yeah, very subtle cues. If it's off, don't bother me.
Pretty much. And, but this house was called the Little White House, not because it's a replica of the White House, but because back then he stayed in a white cottage at the foundation. Yeah. So to keep the property straight for property taxes, whatever, they just deeded this to the Little White House.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Because he actually had this before he became president. Okay. The following year he became president. This was built in 1932. The servants' quarters and this one. And then in 1933 he built that one, which was after he became
the guest house. Okay. This is one of the more solemn part of the tour. When you leave the residence and then you walk out to these collection of state flags and representation of each state in stone, really allows you to reflect on what it may require of a person to be president. And it is a very touching aspect to this tour.